I found out why my dad never talked about his experience in the Vietnam War Part 2. The figure that was once Vin inches closer, his grotesque face a mask of unrecognizable torment. Despite his disfigurement, I think I can still see traces of the man he used to be. In a desperate attempt, I speak, hoping some part of my friend still lingers within this monstrous shell. Vin, it's me, Tan. I shout, desperation lacing my voice. Remember, brother? We fought together in Hue. But the words fall on deaf ears, or perhaps ears that can no longer comprehend. Vin tilts his head, a mimicry of curiosity, but his gaze remains hollow, soulless. He lunges at me. I barely dodge his grasp, feeling the heat of his breath, a fetid gust that smells of death and decay. Vin barrels into the sniper, who is visibly caught off guard. The collision sends her tumbling to the ground, her machete clattering away into the underbrush. Vin's blistered body presses down on her with a ravenous intent. I scramble for my M16, my fingers working frantically to clear the jam. My heart pounds against my chest, each second stretching into an eternity. Finally, with a satisfying click, the mechanism frees, and the rifle is ready. I raise the rifle, aiming at the nightmarish figures converging around us. The first shot rings out, the sound sharp and clear in the dense jungle. The bullet strikes one of the things in the chest, but to my horror, it barely falters. Its body jerks with the impact, yet it continues its advance. I fire again and again. But it's like shooting into a nightmare that refuses to end. The bullets tear through its charred flesh, creating gaping wounds that ooze a thick, dark substance. Yet, it keeps moving, driven by an unfathomable will. I switch the fire selector to full auto. My rifle bucks in my hands as I unleash a torrent of bullets. The creature staggers under the barrage. Rounds rip through its mangled body, each hit a burst of dark, viscous fluid. Finally, the creature collapses to the ground, its form writhing in an unnatural, spasmodic dance. The others, undeterred by the fate of their kin, continue their relentless advance. The magazine clicks empty. Reloading swiftly, I unleash another hail of bullets, creating a temporary corridor through the relentless swarm. The horde, though seemingly impervious to pain, are momentarily staggered by the force of the gunfire, providing me with a fleeting chance to break free. As I make my escape, the desperate cries of the sniper, still entangled in a horrific struggle with the creature that was once Vin, reach my ears. The instinct to survive screams within me to leave her to her fate. She is, after all, the enemy. But as I glance back, seeing the terror in her eyes, a different instinct takes over. No one, not even the Viet Cong, deserves such a gruesome end. Gritting my teeth, I double back, picking up the machete she dropped in her struggle. The weapon feels crude, but effective weapon. With a determined swing, I bring the machete down on Vin, severing the sinewy, charred arm that pins the sniper to the ground. He recoils, his inhuman wails piercing the air. Turning Vin over to face me, I see what's left of him. I feel a pang of sorrow. Vin, please, I plead, hoping against hope for a sign that some part of my friend still exists within this tormented shell. But the creature before me is a far cry from the man I once knew. Go with God, brother, I whisper with tears in my eyes. With a heavy heart, I bring the machete down with all my might. The blade cleaves through Vin's neck, an act of mercy to end his tortured existence. As I turn back to the sniper, I instantly regret ever showing her any kindness. She's regained her footing, her SKS rifle now trained directly at my head. Her expression is a mix of fear, defiance, and something that looks like regret. Even after saving her life, she still sees me as the enemy. I brace myself for the inevitable. But then, in a split second, she shifts her aim slightly, and before I can process what's happening, she pulls the trigger. The bullet whizzes past my ear, striking something behind me. I spin around, following the trajectory of her shot, and there on the ground lies the one she'd called Comrade Fawn. He's squirming on the floor, a bullet hole perfectly centered between his eyes. The sniper lowers her weapon, taking a watchful step towards me, her eyes not leaving mine. I motion towards the dense undergrowth. We need to get out of here, now, I say, my voice a mix of command and plea. She hesitates, the weight of years of indoctrination and hatred evident in her eyes. I extend the machete towards her, handle first. It's a gesture of trust, or perhaps necessity. After a tense moment, her fingers wrap around the handle. Let's go, she declares. As we prepare to leave the clearing, I can't help but pause at Vin's body. His head, nearly severed, still snaps in a reflexive motion. Steadying my trembling hands, I reach out to the crucifix dangling from his neck. I gently yank the chain, breaking it free. I can at least return it to his parents. They deserve something to remember him by. As the other unnatural beings shamble closer, the sniper's urgent voice cuts through my panic. This way, she says, pointing towards a seemingly unremarkable spot amidst the dense greenery. With no time to think, I follow her, the moans of the undead fallen echoing in our wake. We push through the underbrush, the jungle closing in around us like a living entity. We arrive at a small clearing, obscured by a tangle of vines and foliage. The sniper quickly kneels, brushing aside leaves and dirt to reveal a hidden entrance, the mouth of a tunnel. My heart skips a beat. The Viet Cong use complex tunnel networks to launch surprise attacks and disappear without a trace. Memories of being a tunnel rat on search and destroy missions flash through my mind. Those missions were a dangerous game of cat and mouse, navigating the claustrophobic confines of the tunnels, never knowing what lay around the next bend. They were often riddled with traps, punji sticks smeared with feces, tripwires connected to grenades, and deadfalls. Suspicion and dread gnaw at my mind as I eye the dark opening warily. The sniper's eyes meet mine. She can see my hesitation. It's deserted, she assures me. We abandoned this section after a partial collapse. It's not safe, but it's better than what's out there. Her words carry a tone of sincerity, a raw urgency. I weigh my options, the known horror of the Viet Cong against the unspeakable terror of the creatures behind us. The decision is grim, but clear. We enter the tunnel, the sniper quickly sealing the entrance behind us, obscuring any trace of our passage. The immediate danger outside fades, replaced by the oppressive darkness of the tunnel. The air is thick, heavy with the scent of damp earth. I flick on my flashlight, its beam cutting through the pitch black, revealing a narrow, earthen corridor. My M16 feels cumbersome in the cramped space. Every sense is heightened, my eyes straining to catch any movement, my ears tuned to the slightest sound. The sniper moves ahead of me, her movements confident yet cautious. She knows these passages like the back of her hand. The silence is suffocating, broken only by our soft footsteps and the distant, muffled sounds of the ongoing chaos above. The walls of the tunnel seem to close in around us, the earthy smell becoming more pronounced with each step. "Watch your step," she whispers, pointing to a barely visible tripwire stretched across the path. Her warning comes just in time, my foot hovering centimeters from the lethal trap. I nod my thanks, carefully stepping over the wire. We pass small alcoves, some containing remnants of supplies, others empty save for the ghosts of their past occupants. My flashlight's beam dances across the tunnel walls, throwing eerie shadows that played tricks on my mind. Every shadow becomes a potential enemy, every sound a threat. My finger rests uneasily on the trigger guard of my rifle, ready for any danger. We eventually come to a spot that appears to have been a makeshift kitchen. The space is slightly wider than the rest of the tunnel, with charred remnants of a fire pit and scattered utensils. The sniper stops, her gaze scanning the area. She motions towards a corner where a few rusted cans and a small, battered kettle lay. "We can rest here for a bit," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. Exhausted, I lower myself to the ground, my back against the cool earth of the tunnel wall. The sniper does the same, keeping a cautious distance between us, her eyes never leaving me. "What were those bombs?" she demands, her voice tinged with accusation. "Those weren't normal explosives. They turned those men into monsters." I shake my head. "I don't know," I reply honestly. "I've never seen anything like that before." Her expression hardens, the lines of distrust deepening. "They were dropped by your American masters," she accuses. "You have to know something." Frustration and anger well up inside me. "They're only bombing your people because you keep raiding and attacking my people," I retort. The sniper's expression darkens, her eyes flashing with a mix of anger and hurt. "How dare you?" she spits out, her voice low but filled with venom. "Do you know what the Americans did too?" She doesn't finish her statement. The words hang in the air, unspoken, as if they're too painful to bring to life. Instead, she just sits there silently, her hands resting on her rifle, her gaze fixed on me. As we settle into an awkward silence, our eyes meet occasionally, quickly looking away each time, as if acknowledging each other's existence is a betrayal of our respective causes. The silence between us is suffocating, a tangible presence in the cramped tunnel. From above, the chilling, guttural moans of the reanimated soldiers begin to filter through the earth. Their sounds are relentless, a chorus of inhuman snarls and ragged breaths that seem to claw at the very air around us. Eventually, the sniper is the first to break the silence. "Why did you save me?" she whispers, her eyes not meeting mine. I ponder her question. "I don't know," I admit. "Maybe because, in that moment, you were just another person trying to survive. Like me." There's a long pause before she speaks again. "You know, I would have killed you, given the chance." "I know," I reply. "And I would have done the same." After another tense silence, I muster the courage to ask her a question. "What's your name?" She looks at me, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Why do you want to know?" she asks, her tone guarded. "Are you interrogating me?" It's just a name," I say, trying to sound as non-threatening as possible. "I'm just curious." She eyes me cautiously, as if measuring the sincerity of my words. Finally, she relents, her voice softening just a fraction. "My name is Tuat," she says. There's a hint of reluctance in her admission, a vulnerability she's likely not used to showing. "Tuat," I repeat, letting her name roll off my tongue. It feels strange yet oddly comforting to address her by name, to acknowledge her humanity in this inhumane situation. "I'm Tan, by the way," I add. Tuat looks at me for a moment longer, her eyes scrutinizing. "You look like a Tan," she finally says. "What does that mean?" I ask, trying to understand the implication behind her words. She shrugs, a guarded expression on her face. "I don't know." You just do. Her speech pattern intrigues me. It's not the northern accent I had expected. Your accent. You're from Quang Nam province, aren't you? So what if I am? You are too, she replies, picking up on my similar accent. I'm tempted to ask her where her village is, to delve deeper into this unexpected connection between us. But I stop myself. I know too well the risks involved in sharing such information. Knowing where someone is from in times like these could put loved ones at risk for reprisals. Driven by necessity, we begin to form an uneasy alliance. Our conversation is sparse, limited to the essentials of survival. As we share rations, a mix of my MREs and her rice cakes, there's a begrudging acknowledgement of our shared humanity. We talk in hushed tones, exchanging information about the tunnel layout and the possible whereabouts of our respective units. Our dialogue is cautious, each of us careful not to reveal too much. As we reach for the same rice cake, our hands accidentally brush against each other. She recoils swiftly, as if stung, and I see a faint blush color her cheeks in the dim light of my flashlight. For a fleeting second, our eyes meet. Despite the grime and fatigue that marks her features, there's an undeniable beauty there. Her eyes, dark and deep, hold a resilience that's both haunting and captivating. Sorry, I mutter. It's okay, Tuat replies, quickly regaining her composure. Our conversation is interrupted by a distant but distinct sound, the thumping of helicopter rotors. The sound grows steadily louder, vibrating through the earth and resonating in the narrow tunnel. Tuat and I exchange tense glances, a silent agreement passing between us. We need to see what's happening above. Cautiously, Tuat leads me towards a small aperture that serves as a discreet observation point. As we peer through the gap, the sight that greets us is both surreal and disconcerting. A squadron of UH-1 Hueys hovers above the jungle, their silhouettes imposing against the smoky sky. There's something off about them, they bear no markings or insignias, their usual identifiers conspicuously absent. It's as if they've been deliberately stripped of any affiliation, rendering them ghosts in the sky. Through the small opening, we witness the choppers rain hellfire down on the undead. Machine guns chatter relentlessly, spitting streams of deadly lead. Rockets streak from their pods, trailing plumes of smoke before exploding amidst the reanimated corpses. The impacts are devastating, tearing through the undead with brutal efficiency. Limbs are severed, bodies eviscerated. The scene unfolds like a choreographed ballet of devastation. In the eerie calm that follows the assault, the acrid scent of burnt flesh and vegetation hangs heavy in the air. The sounds of destruction subside, replaced by a haunting stillness that blankets the area. Then, movement from the trees catches my eye. A small group of figures emerges from the jungle's edge. They move with a weary but deliberate gait, their fatigues torn and stained with blood and mud. Recognition jolts through me, they're survivors from my platoon, battered but miraculously unaffected by the bombs that transformed others into nightmarish beings. Their arms wave frantically above their heads, desperately signaling to the circling Hueys. The helicopters hover idly for a moment, as if contemplating their next move. For a fleeting moment, a glimmer of hope is sparked in my heart. Perhaps they've come to rescue the survivors, to pluck them from this hellish wasteland. But in an instant, that hope is shattered. The helicopter's guns roar to life, spewing forth a torrent of bullets. The ground around the survivors erupts in a storm of dirt and debris. The Hueys transform from potential saviors to executioners. The men, my brothers in arms, react with a mixture of disbelief and horror. They scatter, desperately seeking cover where there is none. Their movements are frantic, but their fate is sealed. The relentless hail of bullets from above tracks their every move. I watch, powerless, as one by one, they fall. The Hueys don't discriminate. They tear through flesh and bone like mechanized vultures. Their guns do not cease until the last man lies still, his pleas for mercy drowned out by the roar of gunfire.